little town in Texas, Beeville, Texas, and we were a farm worker family. So we just didn't do anything else but farm work. My parents, I think, just didn't see any chance of getting out of that life. So anyway, so I finally moved with my older sister to the Houston area, and began to work in the worst jobs. Of course, when you're 14 years old looking for a job, you won't get anything like but dishwashing or janitorial. Anyway, those are the kind of jobs I had in Houston until I got tired of that and decided to get away. And the only way at that time was to join the Army or the Marines and get away from the life that I was living. So I falsified my birth date and I joined the Marine Corps. Because you have to be 18 to join any of the services. So anyway, I went to the Marine Corps and they caught me. So I got discharged, right? So I'm back to those awful jobs. So about a year and a half later, I joined the Army. And there is where my changes began to take place in me. Because I was able to travel, I went to Europe and I traveled to Holland, Belgium, France, and of course, many places in Germany. So all that was giving me an awareness of the world ahead of me, besides me. Also, I took it upon myself to learn German. And so I met some German friends, teenagers like me, and they began to teach me German, right? So I learned German, and of course, I traveled, I visited Paris and Amsterdam especially. And so little by little, and when I was in the service station in Germany, I got to paint 5 murals, not very large murals, but about 7 feet by 8 or 9 feet, I forget. So that was an experience unforgettable for me because I didn't think I could paint anything so large, and then they came out pretty good, actually. So let's see, and after that, I came home from the Army, and that was 1960. I got out in 62, but in 1965, I think I did my first mural of the Chicano movement, right, which was like the Black civil rights movement, but not as known by Mexican Americans. So my first mural was inspired by this activism taking place of us trying to better our lives and get some social justice, right? So then I painted another mural in 1968, also about the Chicano struggle. But the most important mural I did at that time was a block-long white mural on an outdoor building. That was almost a city block wide. My God, it was 240 feet. And so I began to paint the Chicano community moving from both sides of this enormous wall to the center, where there's an enormous flower blossoming. And from the middle of the flower extend a young boy to one side and a young girl to the other side. And what they're doing is they're reaching to accept the examples of our history and struggle and culture, all the beautiful things of our culture. So the boy and the girl are reaching over to one side and to the other side. Anyway, so the community loved that mural. And I don't know where in the world I got that idea. Later on, I thought about it. What made me choose a flower in a new generation? So anyway, so I did that mural, and that took about a year and a half with no funds whatsoever. In those days, people thought I was very radical in Houston, and I could not get funds because I became real well known for my murals, and I spoke against the establishment, against racism, about American imperialism, all kinds of ideas that the establishment did not take very well. So I could not get funding. I had to always be borrowing money or, getting small amounts for what projects I was doing. Then finally, I undertook a mural on police brutality. That was an enormous mural, like a sculpture, really beautiful. And that mural disappeared. Somebody took this incredible large pieces. I mean, these pieces were like 12 feet tall by 18, 18 feet wide. I mean, 8 feet wide. And there were like 10 of these, right? It was going to be a structure, really a dynamic structure, I call it. And that thing disappeared. So anyway, at that time, my kids and I decided to move to Denver, and we did. And we came here really heartbroken. My wife had just died. That's one reason we left the place. It had been a horrible experience in the last 2 or 3 years that I painted there. And then when my wife died, the kids and I had it. So we came to Denver because I have a lot of family here. And almost immediately I noticed the change. My God. I did a mural on gang violence, like a structure, another structure, a beautiful, I don't know, irregular shapes that I learned how to do. And then not even 6 or 7 months, I did another mural, another sculpture mural about education. And I did that in a high school with kids helping me also. And anyway, so after that, I did a mural on Central America, again, very political. Even the murals I did with high school students and the mural on the environment were very political, right? Because I see the world that way. But they were totally accepted, I mean, by the community, by teachers, and they just liked my work. So you can see that I was feeling something different than Houston. I was so elated at the opportunities that I had. And then to make things even more beautiful, the Denver Art Museum asked me to do a mural inside the museum on any topic I wanted. Can you believe that? Do whatever you want, just come in here, Leo, right? So I went and did a unique piece, I think, and that was also about um, Chicano culture and history and so on. And that mural became such an attraction. The Denver Art Museum was real glad to have this because the attendance increased, especially among Mexican Americans, right? Something that had not been happening before. What happened is that the schools would bring busloads of kids to have me explain the history and the meaning of the mural. And some of these kids would tell the parents, right, about the mural being painted, about the images that I had in the mural, like the weeping woman, La Llorona, in our history and folklore. And so on Saturdays and Sundays, you'd have all these older people, grandparents and parents that wanted to ask me about the mural. Can you believe that? And so I would explain it to them in Spanish, and they had wonderful feelings that the mural gave to the community. And so you can imagine how having come from heartbreak, not only because of my wife dying, but because of being um, blacklisted, right, to a city like Denver, right? And I went on doing other murals. I did murals that, can you imagine again, there was a call for artists, not only from Colorado, but I think from other places. And I won the entry for the airport murals. So then, of course, I did 4 murals with the assistance of my daughter and another wonderful friend. We did 4 murals there. And then what happened? Then I did murals at University of Northern Colorado in Greeley. I did also a mural with prisoners there at the correctional facility in Greeley. And anyway, so I did those kind of works. And I was just so lucky when I came to Denver, right, that the world changed for me and I was able to do whatever I wanted. Okay, I did not have to explain myself. Can you please, help me? No. Sometimes I was going to do a mural in the school, and I gave them my budget. And one day they came over and gave me a check for $18,000, right? Just hand it to me, right? To do a mural, which I did the mural. And that's why I wanted to show slides of my murals, because I think they're so different than what people normally think of murals. And so because I do sculptural murals, shapes and so on, that they attract people much more so than if it was a mural just on a wall. This is a figure that's composed of two profiles. On that side is an image suggesting a European. On this side is a face representing the Native Americans, because it's important for Mexican Americans to know this, that we are a combination of two people, the Spaniard or the European and the Indian. And the fusion of those two produced what we are today. The majority of us, we are a mixture of two ancient peoples. So we can claim the first explorers that came to the Southwest, and of course, the native peoples that have been in the Southwest for thousands of years. That is our legacy, okay? This image is of an eagle that is a symbol of a farm workers union in California that was started around 1965. And the union was led by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. You might want to remember those names. But during the early 60s, there was a great boycott. That is, the union people were telling customers not to buy grapes until the grape growers dealt with the union. So that symbolizes the crushing of the grapes and the Mexican American symbol. I'm a believer. People say I'm a Christian, and I was painting this in 1982 for my first wife. Actually, she told me, they told her that she was terminally ill, that she could no longer survive. They told her just up front like that. And so she was real depressed, and she told me once, paint me Christ. And so I set up an easel by her bed, and I started to paint this. But you can see that he's not, he doesn't look like, I don't know, like a sympathetic, or I don't know what to call it. He looks real somber. And I think the reason for that is that I felt that way too with my wife, knowing she was going to die and feeling hopeless, So she told me to paint her Christ, and that's what I did. When the Spaniards expedition arrived in these villages in central Arizona and New Mexico along the border there, they came looking for the 7 cities of Cibola, and that was supposed to be 7 cities of gold that the Spaniards were always looking for gold, right? But when they got to the villages, they were nothing but poor little pueblos, poor people. So they hung around the Indians for a long time until the Indians told one of them, take these people out of here, lie to them, tell them whatever you want, but get them out of here. So El Turco began telling the Spaniards the stories about gold, where he was from, right? From central Kansas, actually. So the Spaniards were so hungry for gold that they wanted to believe him. So they followed him all the way to central Kansas, looking for the golden cities of Quivira. And when they found no gold there, they killed him. But to me, he's a hero, because he kept the Spaniards away for 50 years or so from his people, right? The Spaniards didn't come back for a long time after that failure. Okay, so remember El Turco. Another time, I decided to paint what I call endangered and extinct species. These two little birds are extinct now, the Carolina parakeet and the passenger pigeon. But the reason I put the Indian there is because the Indians came near extinction with the advent of the Europeans and the taken up of all their territories. So I named this endangered and extinct species for that reason. And from about 10 million Native Americans that occupied the whole of what is now the United States, at one point, the number of Native peoples went down to about 250,000. And can you imagine? That is an incredible Holocaust. So we should know about that. This is a Mexican hero, a revolutionary that fought along with that fought in the Mexican Revolution of the 1911 through 1919. This was one of the leaders for the peasants and of the poor. And so he fought in the revolution, and then at the end of the revolution, they had fought for land, all the peasants and the poor, but the new government did not want to give what they had promised. So they assassinated this guy. His name was Emiliano Zapata. He and others, in the revolution, there were women that followed the revolutionary armies, and they were called Las Adelitas. Adelita is the name, right? But Las Adelitas was given to those young ladies that followed and fought in the revolution.